Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian. We are back and we have another head-to-head video for you today. Of all the times for me to not have the bottles with me, today is one of the days that shouldn't be the case. We have two brand new products that are out on the market, River Bourbon and the new Castle Key Bourbon Batch 2, both of which have very attractive looking bottles. And I definitely think that these are two products you're going to see on people's middle of the year and end of the year wrap-ups, whether it's actually for what they taste like or if it's their affordability on the market. We're talking about the Green River, which is non-age stated, but it says it's at least 5 years old, comes in at 90 proof, and at MSRP around $35. This is 70% corn, 21% winter rye, and 9% malted 2 and 6 row barley. Switching over to the Castle Key, we have a 4-year-old product coming in at 99 proof, 73% white corn, 10% rye, and 17% malted barley. So a little bit higher barley content. And this comes in at an MSRP around $55. So these are both relatively affordable, while one's a little bit more affordable than the other. And we've got these poured out in glasses, blinded. I've only tried the Green River one time before now and not tried the Castle Key Bourbon. So I don't really remember what the Green River tasted like. So this will be relatively blind. We'll see if we can pick a winner here. Let's go ahead and start with whatever is in the first glass. First glass is definitely has this kind of apple cider, mulled cider kind of vibe going on. It's saturated, it's sweet, it's kind of thick, it's kind of full. I feel like while it has a little bit of spice going on, it's kind of nice, cinnamon, dry, inviting spice. It still has a lot of candied fruit, and I can't get over that. It honestly, kind of on the nose, gives me some flavors that are not all that uncommon to maybe rare Blanton's or something like that. I think it's because it has this kind of honey and a little bit of spice, but kind of sweet fruit note going on. Let's go ahead and transition to glass 2. By comparison, glass 2 seems a little bit drier, a little bit more spice. It definitely seems a little bit thinner, but it seems a little bit more crisp. So there's still some cinnamon notes there. There's like a slightly warm bread note there. It has a little bit of oak or wood to it. It's not matured oak, it's not matured wood, but there's definitely some sort of wood note that's there. Kind of has a nice apple skin note to it. So where the first one was kind of apple cider, but kind of juicy and saturated, the second one is definitely more like unprocessed apple juice or something like that. It's definitely crisp. It's definitely maybe embodies the spices you would use to cook something in fall, whereas glass 1 has all the cooked kind of notes already going on, like you've already used the spice in something. Let's go ahead and jump over back to glass 1 and go in on the palate. I mean, glass 1 is buttery right away. It's got notes of cherry. It's got these nice, almost butterscotch candy notes, a little bit more caramel and vanilla, but it's almost butterscotch candies. A little bit of toffee, a little bit of coffee, a little bit of cherry. It's got this little chocolate barley thing going. Like if I didn't know that this was a tasting of two bourbons, I'd almost wonder, like, is this some sort of cask strength scotch or something like that? It doesn't drink overly hot, but there's some good mouthfeel to it. There's some good weight to it. And it kind of has this kind of chocolatey, malty thing going on to it. Like the nose, it does have some balanced spice to it, but it's in the middle of this nice kind of syrupy, thick mouthfeel. So it never comes off heated. It never comes off hot. It just comes off really accentuated with spice. There's a little bit of leather to it, but it's not overly oaky. It does still have like maybe a touch of a bready kind of quality to it. It definitely has this kind of saturated, soaked fruit note to it that hits on cherry and some sort of citrus that I can't quite place. I keep wanting to say lime, like maybe like a graham cracker crust and lime from like key lime pie a little bit, but that's not the focus. The focus is definitely the kind of caramel, sweet notes with these saturated fruit accompaniments, this kind of candied fruit note. Definitely has a little bit of that honey to it. Definitely kind of lingers and lasts for a long time, kind of coats the tongue and finishes really slow. Go ahead and transition over to the second glass. Still nice, crisp on the nose. And the palate hits you with a little bit more heat to it. It's got a little bit more pepperiness to it. It hits juicy almost right away, but then it is a long, dry linger. So it hits with kind of some pepper on the palate. It's got this kind of nice big blast of toasted sugar, this kind of blast of that peachy note that I've talked about in some other things before, but then quickly transitions to kind of some drier, more cinnamon notes. You definitely get seemingly a little bit lighter profile than the first glass, but what you notice as it finishes, if you've ever been on a barrel tour, on a distillery tour, and you've seen the toasted staves they've used in the barrel, or perhaps even just sitting around a campfire and you have kind of charred wood, that aroma that you get of the charred wood definitely has that kind of dry, toasted wood note sitting on the tongue the more that it lingers on the palate. So while it's not overly heavy, while it doesn't have a lot of charred, toasted notes to the front of the palate, again, it has that juicy note, it definitely leaves kind of a drying, charred wood note sitting on the tongue as it dissipates across the palate. You still pick up on that dried apple, that unprocessed apple. So while it does have some sweetness still, it's not overly sugary. Kind of like a rye bread note to this glass. Let's go ahead and jump back quickly to one and kind of sum everything back up. Yeah, from the nose to the palate, one just drinks a little thicker, a little fuller, a little more saturated and sweet. From the sweet fruit notes to the caramelized sugars to the little bit of leather that it has in there. Going back to glass two, a little bit more heat right away. It starts ramped up with a little bit of what seems like maybe a little bit more proof, but it definitely comes across thinner in profile. Does tingle, it's still doing it right around the sides and underneath the tongue with this kind of apple skin and charred wood note. Depending on your usage, either of these would be a really nice go-to pour. I think for my particular palate or for kind of all-day drinking, I think that A definitely leans more towards my profile. If you, again, maybe you like Scotch, maybe you like a little bit more of that malty quality kind of stick through, I think you'll notice a little bit more on whatever is in glass A. Glass B is one that if you've drank Pinhook products before, if you're into more of the craft stuff or any of the other products maybe I've mentioned before that kind of have that peachy tone to them, if you like it to kind of start juicy but end with a little bit of heat, so maybe some more mixed flavors to the pour. You don't want it to be overly sweet. You definitely want some spice to cut through. Maybe you like drinking rye or something that has a little bit more rye content in there. I think you'll be a little bit more at home with any of those sorts of things on whatever's in glass B. Let's see what these are. First glass is actually the green River Bourbon, which makes the second glass the batch 2 of the Castle Key. A little bit surprising because that means this is the one that's kind of that $35 range where the Castle Key's at that $55 range. Kind of thinking about that a little bit, it makes it a little bit easier to go to this one as an everyday drinker because it's a lot more affordable, has a lot of really interesting flavor profiles. I definitely could see myself coming back to this. Definitely could see this as a substitution for somebody who can't find Buffalo Trace products on the market. The Castle Key is a little harder sell because, again, I mentioned maybe it had some of those Pinhook qualities. I mentioned that it had some of those craft distillery qualities, but it's in the price point now that gets close to several different barrel picks that come out from a multitude of distilleries. You get close to the Stellum bourbon, even the Pinhook that I talked about way back when as a nice affordable product. You're going to have some similarities of flavor in this glass here. And so I think it really just comes down to whether it's something that you want to go out and try, or If you have some sort of brand allegiance with Castle and Key, you really want to support them, by all means, pick one up. They're both, again, really affordable products, but especially knowing which ones they are, I definitely see myself leaning a little bit more towards the Green River. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope this was insightful. I hope it was informational to you all. Let me know if you've tried either the Green River Bourbon or either batches of the Castle and Key Bourbon down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you all thought about them. Have you tried these two side by side? What did you all think? Let me know in the comments down below. And if there's other things you want to hear me talk about on future videos on the channel, leave me a message down below or interact with me on Instagram. I'm at Abandoned Bourbon. Thanks so much, as always, everybody, for tuning in. If you want to catch more content, join us on the Entry Proof Live. That's with Drew P. Whiskey. He's also here on YouTube, and we're on his channel Thursdays, 9 Eastern Standard Time, doing barrel pick talk recaps. We have guests on the show, or we're doing blind flight challenges with one another. Having a good time over there. If you all want access to barrel picks, or you all want to get behind the scenes information, consider joining us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. Till next time, everybody, we'll see you all later.